What's up fam, it's Legend. I'm back with another video. What if Naruto was the grandson of Naori Uchiha Part 5? Like goal is 6 likes and the sub goal for the month is 1150. So let's hit both of those. Let's just do the intro and get into it. The gates of Konoha stood tall and silent in the late afternoon light, but the tension that clung to the air was far from still. From the mouth of the great village, 2 cloaked figures emerged without fanfare or challenge. The crimson clouds of the Akatsuki shimmered against the wind-ruffled black fabric of their cloaks. Kisame Hoshigaki, ever grinning and unbothered, bore no more than a few minor bruises across his arms, like souvenirs from a forgettable scuffle. Itachi Uchiha, by contrast, walked with eerie calm, though trails of blood had long since dried and smeared beneath his eyes, evidence of the Mangekyo Sharingan he'd unleashed. They said nothing to one another as they crossed the forest path beyond the walls of the hidden leaf. Birds fled from tree branches as they passed, instinctively sensing predators. Leaves rustled softly in their wake, and only when the broken remnants of the bandit camp came into view did their silence lift. Naruto stood. The boy had not moved far from the scorched ground where he had made his stand. Cuts littered his skin, but he held his ground as Itachi and Kisame approached, dark eyes fixed on the men who had become his only thread of hope. Itachi stepped forward and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "We're leaving now," he said simply. Naruto gave a single nod. In a flicker of chakra and whirling leaves, the 3 vanished. Back in Konoha, the sun had long since dipped beyond the rooftops, casting the Hokage's office in moody shadows. Papers lay scattered across Minato Namikaze's desk, some ink still wet from unfinished orders. The 4th Hokage stood behind that desk now, both hands pressed flat on its surface, body stiff with rage. "There is no way you can be serious," he hissed, addressing the Anbu kneeling before him. "First, my son leaves the village, and not a damn soul seems to have noticed. It's bad enough that I and an abundance of other people in this village treated him like he didn't matter. But now, Itachi and Kisame enter my village, attack my jonin, and leave without consequence." His voice echoed off the walls, and with a thunderous crack, Minato slammed his palm down on the desk hard enough to rattle everything on it. He took in a sharp breath through clenched teeth, then exhaled slowly, forcing his temper to simmer. He ran a hand through his blonde hair, closing his eyes. "Since I'm here, I'll start getting everything ready so we can find Naruto." The Anbu nodded and disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving the office heavy with frustration, guilt, and the weight of too many mistakes. Far away from the hidden leaf, 3 figures appeared in a flicker of chakra within the bustling yet weather-worn streets of Tanzaku Town. Buildings leaned with age, paper lanterns swayed in the wind, and the scent of grilled food hung thick in the humid air. Itachi led the trio, his gaze flicking from shadowed alleyways to open windows with practiced vigilance. Kisame followed close behind, always at ease, while Naruto trailed just a few steps back, still unsure if he was a tagalong or something more. "We will rest here," Itachi said, pausing beneath the wooden awning of a roadside inn. The sign above creaked faintly in the breeze. "Once we arrive at our final destination, I will begin your training. And you may also have others who will train you as well." Naruto's eyes widened slightly at that. Others? Who else would be involved? But he said nothing, merely nodded, and followed them into the inn. The woman at the desk barely looked up when they entered. Kisame stepped forward and dropped a pouch heavy with Ryo onto the counter. 3 rooms, side by side. Her eyes briefly flicked up to the Akatsuki cloaks, but the sight of the money killed whatever protest she might have voiced. Moments later, keys were exchanged, and the trio headed up the creaking stairs to rest. 2 days later, Hidden Rain Village. Rain fell steadily, tapping against the metallic rooftops of the Hidden Rain like 1,000 whispering secrets. Thunder rumbled somewhere far off, and a thin mist clung to the alleyways that wound through the iron and glass structures of the city. Above it all, deep in the fortified tower of the Akatsuki, a storm of a different kind brewed. Naruto stood at the center of a vast chamber. His small frame seemed swallowed by the looming stone pillars that reached up into darkness. Atop each stood a cloaked figure, some still, others shifting impatiently, their eyes all locked onto him. He trembled. Not from cold, but from the immense chakra pressing down on him like the weight of a mountain. He couldn't even raise his head to meet their eyes. And then, a voice as cold and certain as death rang out. "Absolutely not. I see 0 point in keeping a child around us," said Pain, the leader of the Akatsuki. His Rinnegan eyes glowed in the dim light, unreadable and oppressive. "We conduct S-rank missions that crush villages. If he stays, he will die." Silence followed, heavy and absolute. Conan, the blue-haired woman standing beside him, broke it. Her tone was softer, but firm. "As much as I respect you for wanting to take care of the child who has no one to care for him, Pain is right. It's too dangerous. However, there are ways for him to stay and be of use. But Pain doesn't want to take that chance." Naruto's hands balled into fists at his sides, but he didn't speak. Itachi stood silently next to him. Calm, stoic, but his jaw was tight. Kisame chuckled from his own pillar. "Me personally, I don't really care. But I think things would be more interesting with the brat here." From another pillar, Kakuzu leapt down, bingo book in hand. "I'm leaving. Found my next target. I'll return once I've claimed the bounty. Shouldn't take more than a day." Conan's eyes followed him as he strode away, and then she spoke again, this time with a hint of frustration. "You need to get a handle on him, Naga." She paused, correcting herself before the true name slipped. "Pain. He keeps killing all his partners. And S-rank shinobi aren't easy to come by." Itachi finally opened his eyes. "I see," he said quietly. "Then it's a shame. If you plan to cast aside this child, the son of Makoto Uchiha, the woman who raised me, as her own, then you will have to kill me." The words hung in the air like a blade. "Because I know you won't let us leave. And if the only way for Naruto to live is through me dying here, then you will have to fight me. All of you." The chamber went still. Conan looked to Pain. Her face was unreadable. Kisame tilted his head with curiosity but didn't interfere. Pain narrowed his eyes. For a long moment, the tension sat coiled between them, ready to explode. Then, at last, Pain spoke. "Fine, the boy can stay, but he is your responsibility, Itachi." Itachi gave a nod. Naruto stared in disbelief, the crushing weight of dread lifting slowly from his chest. Under her cloak, Conan allowed herself a small smile. She remembered the Second Shinobi War. The pain of loss, the hunger, the loneliness, how she and Nagato had survived with only each other. And Yahiko. She didn't want Naruto to grow up the same way. Not when someone had finally chosen him. Not when someone had stayed. The next day arrived with a quiet drizzle that misted over the rain-slicked roofs of the Hidden Rain Village. Thunder murmured low in the distance, but within the Akatsuki's towering headquarters, the sound was muffled to little more than a gentle whisper of rain against steel. Deep underground, far removed from the gloom outside, Itachi Uchiha sat cross-legged on the tatami mats of a secluded training chamber. The air smelled faintly of sandalwood and damp stone. His eyes were closed, hands resting lightly on his knees as he waited. The room was empty but for a low table against the far wall and an unlit lantern that cast soft shadows along the floor. Itachi remained motionless, a figure carved from patience itself, until the faint sound of hesitant footsteps broke the stillness. Naruto stepped through the sliding door, and it clicked softly shut behind him. He looked smaller than he had the night before, shoulders drawn in, movements tentative. His eyes darted around the space like a cornered animal, and his arms folded over his chest protectively. He was clearly trembling. Itachi opened his eyes and observed the boy with measured calm. "Why are you shaking?" he asked without accusation, his voice low but clear. Naruto rubbed his arm awkwardly and avoided eye contact. "Well, the other people here, they just don't seem to want me around. Like that hot blue-haired girl, and the guy with the weird eyes, and that other one, the one with the stringy body." Itachi blinked once, slowly. He shook his head slightly, but amusement tugged at the corners of his lips. "The hot blue-haired girl you speak of as Conan," he began, his tone deadpan. "And she is happy you're here. She simply doesn't express emotions the way others do. She is composed, deliberate, just like most of us." Naruto blinked, caught off guard. "The one with the dojutsu is our leader. His name is Pain. He doesn't want your death on his hands. That's why he doesn't want you here. It isn't about you, it's about what your presence would cost." Naruto opened his mouth, then closed it. "And the other one is Kakuzu," Itachi continued. "He doesn't care about anything but money. If he doesn't see a bounty on your head, he has no reason to bother with you." Naruto relaxed slightly. It didn't take away the unease in his chest, but the edges of his fear dulled. He took a slow breath. Itachi stood and motioned him over. "Now," he said, "tell me what you know. Ability-wise." Naruto stepped forward, frowning in concentration. "My mom taught me tree and water walking. She made me work on my footwork a lot, and I learned the basics of punching and kicking. She made me memorize all the hand signs. Taught me shuriken jutsu, a bit of taijutsu and kenjutsu. And she gave me the fundamentals of genjutsu, even though she said I wasn't good at it." Itachi nodded thoughtfully. "Then training you will be easier than I expected." He walked to the side table and pulled out a folded shogi board, which he placed neatly between them. Naruto tilted his head in confusion. "We're playing a game." "Shogi," Itachi said, "a game of strategy and patience. It will help sharpen your mind. In battle, you must think 5 moves ahead, not just one." They began. Naruto was clumsy at first, making moves with impulse rather than logic. But Itachi never scolded, only observed. And while they played, he taught. He spoke of ninjutsu theory, how elemental chakra interacted with shape and form. He explained genjutsu, not as a trick, but as a method of domination over perception. He talked about chakra growth and control, the delicate balance between quantity and precision. Naruto listened, his eyes shone with curiosity as the hours ticked by. Itachi spoke slowly, patiently, guiding his student through each topic like a river winding through stone. "Conan," Itachi said at one point, "is particularly skilled at shape manipulation. Kakuzu, for all his flaws, excels in ninjutsu theory. I specialize in both genjutsu and ninjutsu theory." Naruto frowned. "Why are you telling me what they're good at?" "Because," Itachi replied, eyes sharp, "you must learn to seek knowledge. Every member of Akatsuki has something to teach. They will not refuse if you ask sincerely. But you must take the initiative." The board reset again. 5 hours passed like this, and only when Naruto's hand began to tremble from fatigue did Itachi end the session. That night, in his sparse room with nothing but a futon and desk, Naruto stared at the ceiling. "I have no real taijutsu style," he thought. "Mom said the interceptor fist was made by Madara Uchiha. Maybe I should ask Itachi about it tomorrow." His thoughts drifted to jutsu theory, to shape manipulation, to the names Itachi had dropped. He could go to Conan. But Kakuzu. The thought made his stomach twist. That guy gives me the creeps. Still, tomorrow, he would ask. He would learn. He would earn his place here. Scene change. Konoha, Namikaze household. The Namikaze household was unusually quiet. The lights in the living room glowed soft and yellow, but the silence was thick with tension and regret. Minato Namikaze sat hunched on the couch, elbows resting on his knees, fingers tangled in his golden hair. His eyes were rimmed with red, face pale with stress. The fourth Hokage looked nothing like the composed, revered shinobi the village idolized. He looked like a father broken by guilt. Kushina stood nearby, arms folded. She had been watching him for nearly 10 minutes. Across the room, their daughter Mikoshin sat on the rug with her schoolbooks, pretending to focus. But her eyes kept flicking to her father, worry etched on her young face. Kushina glanced at the wall clock. 7:50 p.m. She closed her book gently and approached their daughter with a smile. "Miko-chan, baby, go upstairs and take a shower," she said softly. "Give mommy and daddy a little time to talk, yeah." Mikoshin looked between her parents, lips pressed together, but nodded. "Okay, mommy." She got up and padded upstairs without another word. As the sound of running water echoed faintly through the ceiling, Kushina moved to sit beside Minato. She reached for his hand. "Mina-kun," she said gently, "I know you're worried. I feel it, too. But you can't let Mikoshin see you like this. She thinks you're her hero." Minato turned to look at her. His eyes were glassy. "Yeah, you're right," he whispered. "I can't keep letting her see me like this. He leaned back into the couch, running a hand down his face. "I just wish I could have been a better father to my son." Kushina reached out and pinched his arm. He winced. "Ow, what was that for?" "You mean our son," she corrected, eyes narrowing. Minato cracked a small, weary smile. "Yeah, our son." Kushina leaned her head on his shoulder. "We'll find him, Mina. And when we do, you'll show him you've changed. That you see him." Minato nodded slowly, wrapping an arm around her waist. Outside, the moon had begun to rise over Konoha, casting soft silver light across the village rooftops. The night was calm. But far beyond the horizon, in a different world altogether, their sun was already becoming something else. Something more. But I am ending it here, fam. Remember to hit that like and sub button, but I am out and we'll see you in the next video. Stay blessed, fam.